Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Weyburn City Council here, April 23rd, 5 p.m. We're going to do a regular council business. It is wonderful to see springtime has finally hit in our city, and our reservoir is up fairly good. So that is a wonderful news. Things are doing well. The regular council meeting will be commenced here now. First is the approval of minutes of the regular council and the strategic planning and priorities committee meetings held on April 9th. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll make that, Your Worship.
I'll second it, Your Worship.
Call the question. All in favor? Approved. We now ask additions to the agenda.
Nothing from administration, Your Worship.
Actually, Your Worship, we have 4B, Proclamation, Mental Health Week.
Any other additions you wish? Council? No further additions? With that, all in favor? Approved. Or need a motion, I should say. Do you have a motion for approval of agenda?
I'll make that motion, Your Worship, that we add this to the agenda.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Call the question. All in favor? Carried. There are no public hearings and notices. Delegations, proclamations, and petitions. First is the proclamation of National Day of Mourning. This I will, if you wish to, Scarlett, if you wish to read the proclamation, you can come to the center, or do you wish me to read the proclamation? Okay. Proclamation. Whereas every year more than 1,000 Canadian workers are killed on the job, and whereas thousands more are permanently disabled, and whereas hundreds of thousands are injured, and whereas thousands of others die from cancer, lung disease, and other ailments caused by exposure to toxic substances at their workplaces. And whereas April 28th of each year has been chosen by the Canadian Labour Congress as a day of mourning for these victims of workplace and accidents and disease, a day to remember the maximum sacrifice they have been forced to make in order to earn a living, a day to renew approaches to governments for tougher occupational health and safety standards and more effective compensation, a day to rededicate ourselves to the goal of making Canada's workplaces safer. And whereas April 28th was proclaimed Day of Mourning by an Act of Parliament on February 1st, 1991, I, Marcel Roy, of the City of Weyburn, do hereby proclaim April 28th an annual Day of Mourning in recognition of the workers killed, injured, or disabled on the job. I'll give you this proclamation paper. I guess this is the one here that will give to you.
Yeah,
mine. Yeah, it doesn't matter. So, okay. Very good. Very good. Very good. Do you wish to say any words?
No, I'll just see if Greg's got the picture.
Very good. Thank you. Thanks. I was looking forward to it. Proclamation of Mental Health Week with Tasha Collins. Is she present? Yes. Do you wish to say anything before I read the proclamation, Tasha? No. Whereas Mental Health Week is an annual public education campaign designed to encourage Canadians to learn, talk, reflect, and engage with others on the importance of mental health. And whereas mental health is a state of balance that allows people to feel good about life, supports their ability to function fully and accomplish their goals. People with good mental health are able to realize their potential, work productively, foster strong relationships, and contribute to the community. Many Canadians know that 1 in 5 people who experience mental health illness or challenge each year, but don't really connect to the fact that 5 in 5 of us have mental health that needs to be celebrated, protected, and promoted. And whereas in mental illness, there are different kinds of mental disorders, each characterized by a different set of symptoms that affect how we think, feel, and behave. A disorder is not just a feeling or a reaction to an experience or event. It can interfere with a person's roles, activities, relationships, or capacity for self-care. And whereas the continuing theme, mental health for all, represents the right of every Canadian to enjoy and have the best possible mental health at home, work, and in their own community. And whereas mental health education is vital in the prevention, recognition, response, and early treatment of mental illness and may reduce the severity of the illness or support the recovery of those experiencing a mental illness. And whereas the Mental Health Association of Weyburn is committed to the mental health of our community. We want our families, friends, and neighbors to have the same opportunities, breaking down barriers of mental illness by offering support and programs. Therefore, now I, Marcel Roy, Mayor of Weyburn, hereby proclaim May 7th to the 13th, 2018 to be Mental Health Week in Weyburn. I urge all citizens to take part in events to celebrate this week. Tonight we have reports of standing committees. Police Commission, Councillor Van Betju, would you please read the report?
Thank you, Your Worship. Weyburn Board of Police Commissions met on Tuesday, April 10th, and the first item was the swearing in of our new member at large, Ron McCormick, and Ron was welcome to the board, and we look forward to his input. Mayor's report for February and March. Chief Pritchard presented the Mayor's report for both months of February and March 2018. In February 2018, in comparison to February 2017, the crimes against person had reduced by 2, crimes against property had increased by 16, and total calls for service has increased by 11. Alarm calls were the same. In March 2018, compared to March 2017, the crimes increased, moving the wrong way. The crimes against person had decreased by 10, crimes against properties increased by 4, and total calls for service decreased by 63. And alarms calls increased by 3. Chief Pritchard provided his verbal report. The accounts payable reports for February and March were presented and passed. Chief Pritchard provided an overtime report for 2015, 16, and 17 comparisons. The report shows a reduction of overtime hours from 2016 to 2017 in the amount of 550 hours, which is a reduction of approximately 25%. In School Division Partnership, Chief Pritchard provided the board with a School Division Partnership Bullying and Sexting Awareness presentation updated for February 2018. The Humane Society, Chief Pritchard provided report for February and March. There is no unfinished business. A unit budget and policy warrants back to province discussion was held, and Mayor Roy advised of concern that many people flee the province when released and won't return for court. Discussion was held on this topic. Budget and policy decisions will be held in regards to increased drug enforcement necessity. Budget access for smartphone information. Chief Pritchard advised it costs approximately $2,300 to access a U.S. cell phone, and advised this is rarely an issue that comes up sometimes when in investigations. Rob inquired if CAPG would be lobbying for this at no charge. Further discussion was held. And the board discussed that this could be something that could be discussed at budget time. Traffic bylaw amendment. Mayor Roy advised council is once again reviewing the traffic bylaw and looking at citywide speeds as well as school zones. City Clerk Richter advised council has asked for some information and statistics on speeds similar to what was presented in 2016 when the bylaw was redone. Council may be doing first reading on the bylaw on April 23rd, so we will need some information from police prior to that meeting. In inquiries and announcements, Mayor Roy asked who wants to attend who would be interested amongst members in attending the CAPG conference in Winnipeg, August 9th to 11th. Due to the closeness of this convention, not having to fly, all board members would be eligible to attend. Ron McCormick advised he is unable to attend to a previous commitment that weekend, and the meeting was adjourned.
Is there any questions? If not, we'll make note and it shall be filed. The report was received and filed. We then now move forward to motions. As there's no consent agenda. Accounts payable. Do I have
Worship, I'm prepared to make a motion that the purchases in the amount of $1,642,057.50 from April 6th to 16th, 2018 be passed for payment.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Approved. Very good. It was unanimous. The next item, landfill upgrades. Our Director of Engineering shall present with this.
Sperling Hansen Associate developed the 2016 design and operations plan and a detail for 5-year plan for the Weyburn landfill. Sperling Hansen conducted a waste management assessment and provided a recommendation for optimizing the landfill expansion design to meet the long-term needs of the city of Weyburn. On March 27, 2018, a request for quotation was submitted to 5 consulting companies to provide engineering design and QA/QC during the construction phase of the project for 2018. Quotation was received by the City of Weyburn by April 6, 2018 at 2 p.m. local time. A total of 3 proposals were received, and the results for the proposals are as follows. It is recommended that the landfill upgrade design for 2018 to be awarded to Associated Engineering out of Regina, Saskatchewan, at a total cost of $188,130, excluding applicable taxes.
Any discussion?
Thank you, Nader.
Make motion.
Thanks for the report, Nader. I make a motion, Mike, that the request for quotation from Associated Engineer Regina to provide engineering design for the Weyburn landfill upgrades in the amount of $188,130 be accepted as presented.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Discussion? With no further discussion, all in favor? Unanimous. Filtration system.
The City of Weyburn is seeking proposals for consultant to prepare a detailed design and a construction tender to upgrade the water treatment plant to 100 filtration system, mechanical, electrical, and instrumentation components required to achieve full system automation. This work is being funded in part through the Clean Water and Wastewater Fund. On February 27, 2018, a request for proposal was posted on Sask Tenders, the City of Weyburn website. On April 5, 2018, the city receives the request for proposal response, and the bids are summarized below in the attached table. The proposals submitted were reviewed to ensure bidders understood the scope of work involved to ensure that the project delivery schedule could be met. The engineering department recommended that KGS Group be awarded the work as described in the request for proposal at a total cost of $83,450, excluding applicable taxes.
Your Worship, I'd like to make the motion that the proposal to prepare a detailed design and a construction tender to upgrade the water treatment plant 200 filtration system, mechanical, electrical, and instrumentation components required from KGS Group in the amount of $83,450, excluding applicable taxes, be accepted.
Second.
Your Worship, I'll second that motion.
Call the discussion. Mr. Bailey?
Thank you, Your Worship. On this is above and beyond what we first tendered for the expansion. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with it's just to upgrade our present facility to accommodate this.
It is for upgrading the present facility. It doesn't have anything related to the new reservoir except tying or attaching the new Allen Bradley to talk to the new reservoir once it is commissioned.
Okay. That's what I thought it was, that's what I thought it was, but I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. The next, introduction of the bylaws. The first item is the 2018 3376 mill rate for base tax. Finance Director Missel, will you please?
So we had some discussions on if we were going to add a new class for bare land and not charge them a base tax. So we gave two scenarios. If you want to kind of stay with the status quo, which would be option one, and every class would increase by the same amount, and that worked out to 1.71%, and base tax would stay the same at $600 based on our calculation. That makes an average increase of tax per residential household of only $15. With the second option would be to move all that bare land in residential to their own class, taking them out of the base tax calculation. That would increase the base tax from $600 to $625, and it would reduce taxes slightly, slightly to 1.54%, and the average household would see an increase of about $35. So that's kind of the choice if you want to move bare land to their own class, not charge them a base tax, or continue to charge them a base tax and keep them how we have been doing it.
There's a motion, please. You have before discussion.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'd like to make a motion that Bylaw 2018-3376, Option 1, as presented, a bylaw to fix rates for taxation in the City of Weyburn for 2018, be read a first time.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Discussion? And again, option 1 is to leave status quo.
Thanks, Your Worship.
Recognize Mr. Richards.
So Director Missel, can you help us? So to be clear, what we've read is option 1 is about a 1.7% increase, $15 a household, and that would leave us with a balanced city budget, no deficit, and no surplus to go to reserves this year either. Is that right?
That's correct.
Thank you.
If any further discussion? No further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Our second one is bylaw mill.
Wait. We got to do that 3 times.
Oh, pardon me. I was moving along too quickly. So, do we have a second reading, please?
Thanks, Your Worship. I'd like to make a motion that bylaw 2018-3376, option 1, a bylaw to fix rates for taxation of the city of Weyburn for 2018, be read a second time.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Discussion? Discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Third reading.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'd like to move that bylaw 2018-3376, option 1, a bylaw to fix rates for taxation in the city of Weyburn for 2018, be given 3 readings at this meeting.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Carried unanimously.
One more.
And the final reading?
Thanks, Your Worship. I'd like to move that bylaw 2018-3376, option 1, a bylaw to fix rates for taxation of the city of Weyburn for 2018, be read a 3rd time and passed.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Carried unanimously. On to bylaw 2018-3377. Director Ms. Al, will you please again?
So this goes with the same, it's the mill rate factors.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Yes, we do, Your Worship. And I would like to move that bylaw 2018-3377, option 1, I believe it is, and a bylaw to establish a mill rate factor for classes and subclasses of land and improvements to provide for tax base be read a first time.
Second?
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Yes. Call the discussion. Chair recognizes Mr. Richards.
Thanks, Your Worship. I was so eager to get moving, I got these 2 things backwards. So, to the Director of Finance, this is the mill rate motion. Have we talked about the base tax yet?
Yes, so what I had talked about was the same. They go together, I guess, because if we're going to increase our mill rates, we have to keep the base tax at what it's calculated at, or if we're going to decrease our mill rates, then our base tax is going to increase.
So what you've presented is the base tax remaining at $600.
Yep, that's right.
Thank you.
With a mill rate increase of 1.75?
Correct. 1.71.
71, okay. Any more further discussion? No further discussion? At that point, call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Second reading.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd move that the bylaw 2018-3377, option 1, for a bylaw to establish mill rate factor for classes and subclasses of land and improvements to provide for tax base be read a second time.
Worship, I'll second that motion.
Discussion? Chair recognizes Mr. Pambechu.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would just like to note that I hope in years going forward that we do, if we need a further tax increase, that we're able to put money away in reserves, that I think that is very important. I think we missed that this year. It was a decision that was made, but I do feel that, it is great to leave a minimal tax increase, but I don't think that that is sustainable. And I think in future years, I hope we do look at putting money away in reserves going forward.
I would just like to say in rebut to that I would agree with we try to put money away in reserves, but it has to be known that since 1991, we have been slashed completely by our provincial government continuously. And it didn't matter which government we had in, be it NDP, Conservative, or what. We've been slashed by the government continuously all the way through. 2017 was the worst one that we received. We lost $1.4 million. So it is a very lofty idea to say that we're going to go and start putting money away in reserves. And at what expense are we going to be doing this? We're going to be doing it at the expense of services. We are set up that the cities are supposed to be taken care of by both the federal and the provincial government. And when the provincial government fails to share any type of, do the revenue sharing as they have done in the past and continues to keep slashing and budgeting us, we are not going to be getting ahead, and we are not, all we're going to be doing is just treading water. And so at that time, there's two ways you can do. You can either go into debt, like in the cities, other cities have, or hold firm and try to keep the minimal mill rate. Our taxation on property pays barely, we used to pay 20%, now we're expected to pay 40% out of it. We are supposed to survive by both federal and provincial grants, and when the federal governments and the provincial governments fail to give us money, we are pushing hard on our situation. Chair recognizes our Deputy Mayor, Junior Youth Mayor.
If I may, with respect to Councillor Van Betju, if no money is put away into reserves when people my age come to take over the city, it would be nice to know that we have some money to fall back on for our own investments and projects too.
And in saying that, it is good to cut and put money away in reserves and keep working on that. But at the same time, we also have to call to action that this year we were supposed to be happy, and because the provincial government said they're not taking money away, as they have steadily taken money away, it is up to us as citizens to put pressure on the provincial government to start freeing up money and giving back money that they have taken away from the cities on a consistent basis since the early 90s. With that being said, do we have any further discussion on the second reading? With this, we'll call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Third reading.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that the bylaw 2018-3377, option 1, is a bylaw to establish mill rate factor for classes and subclasses of land and improvements and to be provided for tax base be given a third reading at this meeting.
Your Worship, I'll second that motion.
Discussion? No discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Final reading.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that the bylaw 2018-3377, option 1, a bylaw to establish mill rate factors for classes and subclasses of land and improvements and to provide for tax base or base tax be read the third time and passed.
Your Worship, I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Next is our bylaw 2018-3379, traffic bylaw. Director of Engineering.
The Engineering Department reviews the traffic bylaw number 2016-3346 and propose that the bylaw be amended to include the following: adding a list of definition, modifying the school zone speed limits and the snow routes. And the current bylaw, stated in section 36, page 9, the speed limit is in school zones is set at 30 km per hour. We are proposing that the speed limit in school zones or playground zones designated by a sign is 30 km per hour from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., as well as including a full definition for snow routes and any clause regarding snow routes. Also, there is a change in the speed limit on Railway Avenue from 16th Street to Highway 35. It is proposed to be 50 km per hour. This is the main changes in the amended traffic bylaw.
Mr. Jessel.
Your Worship, I'll move that bylaw 2018-3379 to amend bylaw 2016-3346, being the City of Weyburn bylaw to regulate traffic and control the use of public highways, be read a first time.
Do you have a second?
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Discussion? Chair recognizes Mr. Van Betju.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to speak in favor of this bylaw change. I think initially when we brought the school zone speed changes in place, the idea was to put them in place, I think, and then give people time to get used to it and and then as time presented itself, that we would put a time limit on it for 7 days a week. I don't see any benefit to raising the speed limit. I think it puts our children in unnecessary risk just for the sake of speeding up your travel to work or to wherever you may be going by a few seconds. So I think it's very important that we do keep the speed limit at 40 in the city, and we can keep Weyburn that much safe place for all our residents.
Chair recognizes Mr. Richards.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with nearly everything written here. I agree with remaining at 40K, 30 kilometers an hour in the school zones remaining. I agree with the increase, thank you, on railway. I'll be curious to see how that works. My question is around the time of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. in the school zones, then going to 40 kilometers an hour at 6 p.m. And I know that there's a rationale behind that, and I'd like you to explain that to us, because my fear is, I've said this before, there's a lot of stuff that happens in the schoolyards and the playgrounds in the evenings, and think about baseball practice and things like that. So I'm not sure that, well, I'll let you explain, Director.
The rationale behind those numbers that we already have done a kind of data collection from similar cities all over the province. We got 10 cities who are implementing school zones. Some of them, they are 24/7. City of Yorkton, they are implementing 40 kilometers per hour from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., 365 days. North Battleford, 8 to 9, 30 kilometers. City of Regina, 40 kilometers from 8 to 10, 300. And I'm just giving samples of our rationale why from 8 to 6. City of Humboldt, 30 kilometers per hour from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday, only school days. Same as City of Saskatoon, it is 30 from 8 to 5. So there is similar cities from 8 to 5. We are proposing that the speed limit will be 30 kilometers from 8 to 6. The rationale about this, because during the school time from 8 to 3:30, there is the full capacity of the school from the kids and the staff and everybody. However, any activities which will happen after the school time, it will be limited to a certain amount of kids. So this is why we are changing it at 6 p.m.
Chair recognizes Mr. Jessel.
I guess to echo Mel and Jeff, I do agree with everything else. I think everyone knows my viewpoint at this point. I'm still not in favor of the 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., especially if we're talking playground zones. Why would we even implement playground zones if we're saying we only care until 6 p.m.? From what I've read too, many that do time zones, they also have a flashing light, just so you know when that time zone is. I still have that concern of, as a driver, it's between school, between 8 and 9 and between 3:30 that you would pay attention. It's at 7 o'clock when you're looking into the west, into the sun, and a kid runs out and you may hit him. Everyone just slows down during school. I would be the opposite. I'd say from 6 p.m. till 8 a.m., you should do 30 and keep it 40, because for the most part, you're at say 2 in the afternoon, there is no kids in the school. No one's leaving the school. I'm more worried about the after school. That's my concern, because kids aren't paying attention then, and neither are drivers. So I would still not be in favor of that, unless of course we did implement flashing lights during those times.
Chair recognizes Mr. Mickle.
Thank you, Worship. The first part of the motion, I partially agree with Nader. I struggle, as Councillor Chessel does too, with the time elements. I think the flashing lights is probably not a bad idea to signal what's happening. I can go with that. But Railway Avenue, and the reason why it was kept at 40 kilometers from a former police chief, Mr. Bill Miller, was that people have businesses on Railway Avenue. And I'll give you an example of the eye care business in that area. People are backing out into Railway Avenue, okay? Now you increase that to 50, maybe they're going 55, 60. That is very fast for people trying to back out and access either left or right on Railway Avenue. I will not support a 50 on Railway Avenue. I know it's nice to get out of that area, but you got to consider the businesses there, and they back out on there. It could be a gong show.
I will speak now to this. One of the things that both you people talk about drivers not paying attention, and you are now taking away the responsibility of the drivers. Drivers are supposed to pay attention, and I don't care what age you are, whether you're 16 years old to 80 years old. If you're driving a vehicle, you are to pay attention. And whether there's moving traffic, and there's rules and bylaws in effect for driving. And for a person to think that they can just simply back out however they have to pay attention, and it's not their right to be able to just back out whichever way they want. We also have created a whole nature. We do not have a jaywalking bylaw in here, and all the years I had police, we have no jaywalking, and we have created this whole monster that you have here where you say children dart out in the middle of the street. Well, this comes from school buses unloading in the center of the street with the stop arms. There should be a thing in the bylaw added to the bylaw that school buses have to unload at the corner. There should be no jaywalking across. We see it at the schools that people let their kids out across the street and the kids are darting out all through the area, and it's up to the driver's responsibility. That is not up to the driver's responsibility whatsoever. People are jaywalking like terrible. We are looking at even traffic flow, and if they are worried about the residential, then at least the corridors have to be moved. Unfortunately, there are some people that have houses along the corridors, but we have missed yes, railway is good, I support that, but we missed First Avenue, we have missed the 35 highway, Government Road, which is a connecting highway. We have missed that. And at that point is that we are going. We also have that one of the things that you're missing here too is the point that we ran a poll. And in the poll, it said that the 71% were in favor of staying at 30 kilometers. And on the other one, that there was a citywide poll that out of 849 people that responded to the poll, the rest didn't seem to care because they didn't respond to the poll. They responded to the poll, and there was 76% of the people wished to see that poll moved. So, Mr. Mickle and Mr. Chessel, are you saying that you are not going to, you're going to ignore what the public has been asking for? Is this what you're saying, Mr. Mickle?
I didn't say that. You put the words in my mouth, Your Worship. I did not say that.
Well, you're saying that we had a poll that said 76%. So it's either you're not going to listen to the polls, and we don't do polls anymore, and we forget about what the public are saying, and you go by what you simply say. What I'm asking you, do you agree with the polls or not? Do you believe in a poll or not?
I agree with what people have told me, Your Worship, through conversation, texting, and emails.
They have a poll. We ran a poll. Do we do away with polls then?
Your Worship, if you want to have your opinion, I'm entitled to mine. You have yours, and I have mine.
But I'm asking you a question. Should we do away with the poll then?
Can I answer that question?
Okay, you can.
So I agree with polls, but let's put some more information instead of a simple question of, do you want to go 50K? Let's put a little more context into that. Do they understand what they're actually answering? And who actually answered these polls? I'd like to see the full demographics from ages. I don't know, when I did a personal post on social media, some of those people messaged me personally and say, you know, if I would have had that information prior, that would have changed my view when I voted. So putting a poll that just asks a simple question, you're going to get the simple answer. It's a simple yes or no. But if they were put into context and understood what was based around that, if someone would have said on King Street, it's 18 seconds of my life for a speed change, oh, well, maybe for someone's life, maybe I wouldn't have agreed with that. So I agree with polls, yes, but then give them more information and provide them with more information before we give them a poll.
The chair recognizes Mr. Wheeler.
Thanks, Your Worship. I agree with a lot of the points that are brought up here. Your Worship, you have some valid points about the speed, and I agree that there are main arterials that I believe should be 50 kilometers an hour regardless of if it's a commercial area or retail. First Avenue Northeast for one, doing 40 kilometers an hour from one edge of the city to the next, in my opinion, is ludicrous. I don't want 60, but 50 would be reasonable. I do have a question to Chief Pritchard. He may be able to answer. When was the speed limit determined to be 40 kilometers an hour in Weyburn?
Chief Pritchard, if you would approach the stand, please.
Your Worship, Council, I can't say when 40 kilometers an hour for the city of Weyburn. It was long before I got here. I'm assuming it's been
Thinking it was probably long before a lot of us were born. And back then, vehicles didn't have power steering, power brakes. They were heavy. The safety factor in vehicles has gone up tenfold since the 50s or 60s. So I don't think it's unrealistic to venture out and go 50 kilometers an hour on the main arterials. I do not agree with increasing the speed limit in the residential areas. And Mr. Chessel, or Councillor Chessel, brought up some valid points about the school zones, the flashing lights, because there are different times throughout the day where there are children playing. So I can't vote for this right now definitively on anything because it's not exactly what I would like, but there are some good points, and I think it's open for more discussion, in my opinion.
Chair recognizes Mr. Richards.
Thanks, Your Worship. This is great discussion, and this is what they signed up for. Just a couple of things I'd like to talk about first. There is a very big difference between a poll and a plebiscite. So even though the polls may have said, this is what we think, it's not a plebiscite, it's not binding. So I don't want to get too caught up in a poll that, 1 or 2% of our population filled out compared to the feedback that Councillor Chessel had on his Facebook page, which outstripped the poll that we had done. So at first that, but I also want to thank Chief Pritchard and his staff. They provided us some valuable data I'd like to share. The stopping distance of vehicles, and I'm not sure which one of you guys did this because I've misread it or mishandled it here, but 30K to 40K adds about 8.5 meters of distance to your stop. That's significant. And that's why I think we have to leave this at 30K. And I will be the first to say, when I got on council, one of the things I wanted to do was get rid of those 30K zones. And I have changed my mind. I think that these guys are right. This shouldn't be done by time of day. I've been to the Don Mitchell paddling pool at 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night, and there's no way you shouldn't be. If you're doing 40K through there at 8 o'clock at night, you're not paying enough attention to a lot of kids running around. So I'll side with everything, and I think we can look at some of these arterials at 50 kilometers an hour as well.
Thank you. Mr. Van Betju.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I think we've batted this around for a couple of months now. And we've all had different opinions, and we can argue the benefits of 30 at certain hours a day and 30 at other hours a day. 40 kilometers an hour has worked for a long time in this city. I don't know why we're trying to fix something that isn't broken. I wish we could move on, do something productive. Not that setting speed limits isn't, but I think we've spent ample amount of time on this, and I think it's time to make a decision, and let's get on with the next item on the agenda.
Chair recognizes Mr. Chessel first.
I guess still, I'm still confused on why we want to change the time frame. Is it because other cities do it, so we have to? I guess I'm not sold or understanding why the time frame even comes up. That's like saying, okay, well, we're going to change the speed from 50K from 7 p.m. until midnight because that's fine. I don't understand this, so still trying to get it wrapped around my head.
Chair recognizes.
Thanks, Your Worship. I don't like the argument of why are we changing it. If that's the question, why did we change it to 30? How many pedestrian vehicle accidents has there been in school zones that you recall, Chief Pritchard?
In the past 2 years, there's only been one in pedestrian. In the time that I've been here, which is just over 6 years, we've probably had 3 or 4, and very few, very minor injuries in school zones. We have had other pedestrians hit in other places that have had significant injuries, but not in school zones.
Yeah, and I don't think it'd be hard-pressed to pin it on speed, probably more like a distracted driver. Doesn't matter what speed limit you put, there's going to be distracted drivers, and I think it's a matter of clamping down on the rules that focus on items like that more so than speed. everybody drives around. I know cell phones you aren't supposed to be using those for years, and I still see probably 3 or 4 people every day when I'm traveling using their cell phone while they're driving, and I think there should be more focus on that. I agree, 30K in the school zones with certain limits, I can vote for that. It's just the 40K, I think it's archaic and it's long overdue for revision.
Chair recognizes Mr. Mickle.
Thank you, Worship. I think we should solve this tonight, gentlemen, because our engineer has a lot of other important things to do than our traffic bylaw. Not that that isn't important. However, is it possible to break this in 2 parts? The school zone is one issue, the 50 kilometers on railway is another issue. I certainly support the 30, and I think most of council does with time. The other part of the motion would be the increased speed on railway. And then we can solve this tonight. We can't keep going forever here. The public has spoken through polls and through other media and other presentations, and I think they're relying on us, the public out there, to make this call this evening, not drag it on for another 2 weeks.
I would agree with you. If we can have someone what did you say? Amend, that's the words. Amend to talk about, first off, the motion about the
Go ahead.
about the school zone.
Your Worship, just for your information, we are only doing first reading on this bylaw tonight if the first reading passes. Due to our public notice policy, things like the traffic bylaw, we must do first reading and then publicize it for 2 consecutive weeks before the next meeting, and then we would do second and third reading. So if you did first reading and you did follow through the first reading and gave direction for changes, that bylaw could be amended and advertised with the amendments and then brought back on May 14th for second and third reading, if that's council's choice, or you can pass it as is.
I think what it is with what Mr. Mickle said is that the one part about the school zone is, and then the discussion on whether we don't want to pass it, drop off or defeat a motion when we're talking about corridors. We want to get the corridors and organized about the 50K corridors. So if we could have an amendment just to talk about the school zones here right now, Mr. Mickle?
Yes, Your Worship, I'd be in favor if we can amend that motion to put the school zones as one part of it and the additional as part 2.
Can we do that?
We're talking about amending the bylaw. We wouldn't be amending the motion. The motion would stay, but you can certainly, within this motion, you could include in this motion, if the mover and the seconder would agree, to amend the bylaw any way that you choose.
I'll make a motion or amendment to motion that we continue with 30 kilometers an hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In school zones and playgrounds.
Second?
Well, I'd be happy to second that, Your Worship.
And do we have Mr. Wheeler, do you have an amendment for the corridors? One motion. Okay. All in favor of the amendment? Against? One dissenting. Mr. Wheeler?
Your Worship, I'd like to make a motion that we amend the bylaw to recognize the 50-kilometer speed change in a different reading and address it at a later date.
Or just talk about the corridors? Yes.
I'd like to make the amendment of the speed change on main arterial corridors to include more than Railway Avenue and be addressed at a different time than the school zone amendment.
Second?
Yeah, I'll second that, Your Worship.
Discussion?
Thanks, Your Worship. So to be clear, we have to come back now. Oh, sorry, Corey. We'll have to come back now and discuss where the 50K zones will be applied? Is that what's happened with this?
I would suggest that what you're saying is, yes, we're going to take the speed zone, or the 50-kilometer-an-hour arterial zones out of the bylaw. So we're going to remove that and only bring back on May 14th the issue of the school and playgrounds. And then if council chooses to do at a future time, they can do a further review on the speed limits of 50K.
No, I don't think
separately.
we
Is
want
that not what you want?
No, we want
Then I
to
don't know. Yeah.
add in, that's what I was going to say, we want to add in other corridors. Go ahead, Mr. Wheeler.
It's kind of the meaning I had, because I don't agree with just changing the one, and to go through this to increase the speed on other arterials would just be repeating the same exercise. So I think the school zones is the most important part right now, and we want to make sure that we get that clarified. But I do believe that we need to address all the main arterials at the same time, rather than redoing this again.
Chair recognizes Mr.
Your Worship, Brad, I guess I'm just wondering too, what is missing? Because I know when I read the report, majority areas are covered by 50 and 60K that I could.
Government Road and First Avenue is.
First Ave?
All the way down.
First Avenue Northeast is 40 kilometers an hour all the way from 16th Street across to Tattagua Park, or Tattagua Place by the bridge there.
And Government Road is 40K all the way down.
So I guess would that be a suggestion then, is we add that right now?
Yeah, and then you could.
And then that would be put in, engineered, put that in, and then we would be good to go for next
I would agree to that.
So, Chair recognizes Ms. Van Betju.
I could not support that part of the amendment. Just, I think having the amount of semis that go down First Avenue from 16th Street right through town, past the hospital, past our Jubilee Park playground, around the 7-Eleven corner, which is probably the busiest intersection in town, and going forward. And then same with Government Road, we talk about vehicles backing out of driveways and everything else, and we have a lot of large trucks again on that route. I could never support a 50 kilometer an hour on those two routes.
Chair recognizes Mr. Wheeler.
That's a whole different topic. I think that's all to do with Transport Canada and actually rerouting heavy trucks out of the interior of Weyburn. I think that needs to be addressed, and I think it was brought up earlier, not with this discussion, but getting a dangerous goods route and truck route that actually bypasses the city rather than dissecting it down the center and basically the center on both directions, northeast or north-south and east-west.
That's correct. Second on Mr. Wheeler's motion, then, which is that we are going to include Arterial, First Avenue, and Government Road, as well as Railway. Second? For the arteries?
I did second that.
Yeah, or you second?
Yeah.
Okay. Call the question. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, so then it stands that we have what the bylaw that we wish to vote on is this. It is, read.
I don't have it in front of me, but I'm going to try and ad-lib, and I hope you all can correct me if I'm wrong. From what I understand, the motion will be to give first reading to the bylaw, but to amend the bylaw to exclude arterial routes of increasing 50 kilometers an hour. So all other changes in the bylaw will be given first reading, but we are removing the portion of increasing the speed from 40 to 50 kilometers an hour in the city. Oh, I'm sorry, and taking off the time restrictions of the school zones. That's correct, yes.
So we're not doing anything, we're taking out railway out.
Oh, sorry, so I guess I was confused because I thought it was just on the changes Brad was recommending.
Right, I thought it was on the changes too, and not.
I didn't think it was like railway.
The motion was lost on the changes that Brad brought forward. We are now voting on the main motion, which was to give first reading to the bylaw.
Which is, read that.
I'm sorry. Okay.
To the school zones, 30K school.
It will be to give first reading to bylaw 2018-3379 to amend the traffic bylaw to regulate traffic and control the use of public highways, and to be amended to exclude the increase from 40 kilometers an hour to 50 kilometers an hour citywide, and to remove the timeframes on school zones and playgrounds.
She did well, didn't she, Worth?
And I guess what I'm still confused by what we're going to vote on. Does that say that we're going 24 hours a day for the school zones? Right.
It will remain exactly as it is today, Your Worship.
And Railway Avenue will not be increased?
There's no discussion about Railway Avenue based on the motion that was just lost.
So this, you want no change? All in favor? Or we were voting on this?
Yes.
Meaning that all that we're going to be amending, we're taking out all the speed stuff, because that is not going to be in there, that there be, all the school zone is going to be taken out onto there, meaning that we're going to leave it status quo, and there will be 40 kilometers throughout the city, no change to any of the arterials, railway will be taken out, and other than that, we're voting on all the other things such as the definitions and the such. Is that correct, Engineer? Yes?
Yep.
So what is being is the status quo, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, school zones, and that the rest of the city remains at 40 kilometers except for posted what is as is right now. Chair,
Your Worship, Danette, now, there was a few other minor changes in there that I think that would exclude them, would they not? Like, for example, Highway 35, King Street South, 500 meters north of 5th, 100.
Those were previously approved. Those like limits, speed limits, zones, they were previously approved by the councillor in June 23rd, but they never been into the current bylaw.
Thank you. I just didn't all of a sudden want that to get missed and like, oh, geez, we.
So basically what this is saying is that you want to leave everything in status quo and keep it at the speeds. Mr. Richards.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think that it's fair to say that we're pretty convinced on this school zone stuff. I don't disagree with Mr. Wheeler, but I think if we're going to have some increased 50K zones, we need to sit down with the Director of Engineering at a separate date when his plate isn't so full, and maybe that's a year from now. And let's look at, yeah. Right, yeah, you're right, and sorry, I'm with the police, to look at what makes sense to go to 50K. But I think for tonight, I'm sort of with Councillor Mickle, let's let our Director of Engineering get on with his life, and we can talk about these 50K zones at another time.
Call the question. All in favor? All against? Opposed? 2 opposed. Director, Assessment Appeals. Director of Finance, Missile.
So our Board of Revisions brought it to our attention that our appeal fees are very low compared to other cities. So we did a assessment and we found that cities range anywhere from $30 per appeal to $750, and some of them do them, most of them do them based on assessment or assessed value. Some of them do them in like 200,000 blocks up to a maximum. So we've proposed that we increase our appeal fees, because right now they're sitting at $25 for residential and $50 for commercial. And if you win your appeal, you get it back. That's based on legislation. So it's quite costly to us to go through the appeal process, and so when we do end up winning it, we aren't really making anything off of it. It's costing us a lot of money. So we've proposed that residential, condominiums, agriculture, we would have a $50 fee. Multifamily and commercial, under 500,000 in assessment would be 100. 500,000 to $1 million would be 150. $1 million to $5 million would be 250, and over $5 million would be $500.
Your Worship, I'd like to make a motion that bylaw 2018-3378, a bylaw to establish fees for appeals against assessments, be read a first time.
Your Worship, I'll second that motion.
Discussion? All in favor? Carried. There is no unfinished business.
Your Worship.
Pardon me? Oh, three readings.
Yeah,
Pardon me again on this bylaw, these are bylaws. Second reading?
That the bylaw 2018-3378, a bylaw to establish fees for appeals against the second, be read a second time.
Your Worship, I'll second that motion.
Call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously.
Bylaw 2018-3378, a bylaw to establish fees for appeals against assessment, be given three readings at this meeting.
Your Worship, I'll second that motion.
Call the question. All in favor? Final reading.
Thank you, Worship. A motion that bylaw 2018-3378, a bylaw to establish fees for appeals against assessments, be read a third time and passed.
Second.
Your Worship, I'll second that motion.
All in favor? It is passed. Now we can go on to unfinished business. No unfinished business, and Acting City Manager Warren, if you'll do new business, we're going to talk about the Recreation Culture Center presentation.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just going to wait till the presentation's up on the screen here. So I'll give an update on where we're currently at for the Weyburn Recreational and Cultural Center. So right now we're at design and development stage, which is 66% drawings. So what I'm going to show you tonight is the proposed facility that it will be in conjunction with the new Weyburn Elementary School that will be located over in Jubilee Park. Like I said, this is 66% drawings, so that's where we're at right now for the project. I'll go through some of our current processes, some drawings that we have to date, and at the very end I actually have a pretty cool promotional video to show you where the facility looks like, and we'll go from there. So in the very start, this is actually the proposed exterior view. The yellow is just there right now. That may change. We haven't chose color exteriors for the building. That's something that our architects put in place for that. So right now, I'll provide an update where we are in our project. So since we hired number 10 out of Winnipeg, and Site 360, which is out of Regina, they're our architectural company. So on September 7th, we had a kickoff meeting with them. At that time, we went through some of the hopes and dreams we had for the project, provide them some basic setup for the interior, exterior we wanted to see for the facility, and we went from there. On the 28th of September, we had a site gaming meeting. It was pretty much bringing us and the school into the same room and talking about kind of what we want to see of the project, some of the things we can look at collaborating as we move forward, some of the things we want separate from the school, and some of the things that we want to go with them as well. On October 1st, I had fieldhouse consultations with cities, so I actually had a consultation meeting with the directors of leisure services in both Martinsville and in North Battleford. So they're the two newest facilities in the province that were built, and they've done different things in theirs. One is a sprung facility, which is in the pavilion in Martinsville, and then the one in North Battleford is a facility with two different sides, one a court surface, one a turf surface with removable turf. After that, we actually did facility tours of some facilities here in southern Saskatchewan. So first we went to the R Center in Moose Jaw. After that, we went to the Eventsplex over in Regina, and we also went and seen the kinesiology building in Regina as well. After that, we had a meeting here at City Hall, which was a user visioning meeting. So that included yourselves as councillors. We had members from Meyer Soccer, Meyer Football, Meyer Baseball, and Meyer Lacrosse. going through some visioning of what they would like to see within the facility, how do we be able to meet some requirements they may have, and maybe meet some other requirements we have for other uses in the facility as we move forward. October 16th, we had a joint use workshop. So pretty much that was a workshop where we sat as a group with the school and said, okay, what is the city's, what's the schools, what can we share, and what can we have joint use? And actually my second last slide will actually show you some findings from that meeting and some things we've used as we went through the design process. After that, myself and facility manager Biden actually drove out to Winnipeg for a day and did tours of actually 2 facilities that number 10 had worked on. One is the Axworthy Center at the University of Winnipeg. They built a new field house in that school. And we also went to the Sport for Life building. It was actually a building built for the Canada Games that were just held this last summer in Winnipeg. It was actually a pretty different facility. It actually had all their sport governing bodies in that facility as well. So it was a pretty large court surface facility. After that, we had pre-designed submissions. So as we go into our first set of drawings, that was back in November. We had integrated the design and planning meeting. The first one we did is one on November 9th. So that meeting was involved with architects, our engineers for the project. It was actually a pole planning meeting as well. So we actually got everyone into one room and started to scope out what we want for the project and some of the timelines we want to work towards as we go further through. Jump forward to the first part of January, schematic design submission. So that's for our 33% drawings were submitted. And then we had a meeting on the 22nd of January to actually review those as we move forward into design. Our second IDP was on February 1st, and then we had our third IDP on March 14th in time for our design development review, which was submitted here on April 10th. So actually the drawings I'll show you from today is actually from April 10th. We're working towards our 66% of submissions, which will now go on June 8th. And then we worked hard towards 99% drawings. Then we went to tender, which will be on September 1st of 2018 is our goal. We're actually hoping to maybe push that into August if possible, with planned start construction in October, and then plan to have the facility done by September of 2020. So that's kind of what we've done for a time frame before and as we move forward for this project. Some of the design concepts and inspirations we've done to kind of driving this project. One is community partnerships. Our partnership with the school is one facility with the school division owning and operating their own side of the facility, and the city of Weyburn owning and operating our own side of the facility. So we'll be programming our own facility. We'll have a management team inside of our facility, and we'll have some joint uses as we go through, and we're working on those partnerships as well right now. And then we want to make a sense of belonging. That's why it was really key for us to have some planning meetings to go through and decide where our synergies are and where some things that we have distinct differences are as well. Park connections, because it is in Jubilee Park, we want to make a strong connection to the park. As you'll see when we go into the drawings, there's lots of glass views out to Jubilee Park. So we want to feel that you are a part of that area of the community as well. And we want to make sure that there's nature and natural materials within the building. And that's something that we're doing right now as we go into our DDR process. History and art, design is inspiration and meaning. So what we want to do is we don't want to just think about our future. We want to think about our past. So we're actually be looking at some materials that we can use for that. We're looking at some materials actually from some old buildings we had here in town that we can maybe use for the exterior of the building. So we're actually doing some research for that right now. And then we have program opportunities through art and history. So we will be having arts programming, including gallery, and a lot of our other arts programming moved into this facility as well. We want to have an integrated facility where it's just not a sport and recreational facility. We want to make sure it's a sport, culture, art, recreation facility. That's a big goal that we have for this. Next point is actually based on the school. They're looking for 21st century learning and teaching. And then the very last one is wellness and activity. So we want to ensure that this is a multifunctional, multi-generational, year-round use facility. That's a goal that we have as we move forward. So here's some external views of the facility as we stand. So this is drawings we had from, like I said, April 10th. So the very top drawing here, this is the view to 5th Street. Right here will be the entrance into the arts space, and right here will be the entrance into our recreational space. When I talk about use of old materials, we're looking at using some of the tindall stone from Surs Valley for this space in here. So we're right now trying to look into that. We actually talked to our architects, and last week we actually provided them more information what we have for tindall stone, and they're going to actually have people come look at it and see what they can use and what they can move into this building. So that's pretty exciting that way. When we move down, this is a view right here, southeast. That would look towards our outdoor pool, and then this would look out to our current outdoor rink, which will actually be removed, and we're looking at putting a new outdoor rink in. Very end is the back side of the building with a community common. So this is where our attachment is to the school right here, and this looks into Jubilee Park for exterior. When I talk about exterior views, you got lots of glass throughout the facility, more glass in the back, and more glass back here. So that's all the second story walking area, which I'll show you here in a little bit, but that's all exterior glass, which you'll have feelings that you're in the park as you're walking. That's kind of the goal that we have as you move forward with that. So moving forward with the drawings. So when I talk about the connection with the school, this is a space in green that we call community commons. So this space right here is actually the school gym, which we have doors we can access into it if we need after school hours used for recreational programs. We'll include that into our joint use request that we have that. Right here is a kitchen space that we'll joint use. So during the school day, the school will use that. They actually have a food program right now at Surs School. They want to move into this school. And then we'll use that space for cooking classes and for any other events that we have within that space, such as gallery, exhibitions, stuff like that. And then this is a shared washroom, men's and women's washroom. So right now, this is the only shared space that we have with the school. The rest of this space in the second level, like I said before, is owned and operated by the City of Weyburn. We have our own utilities, we have our own operation expenses, all that is the city's for operations. As we move forward into the project, these are 3 multi-purpose rooms. Each one of the rooms have sliding doors. They can make it 1 large room or 3 smaller rooms. Our plan for that space is to have arts programming into those spaces, to have it as a meeting rooms for people from the public who want to use those spaces. We also have currently children's programs that happen in the summertime over at Signal Hill. They would actually move into that space as well. And those spaces are also open for user groups to use for sport, culture, and recreation usage. Right here is a pottery slash, we call it messy room. So pretty much for that is we would have woodworking, pottery, acrylics in that space. It's a lot different view than what we would have in our current Signal Hill Arts Center. We'd have special stuff for wet cleanup for in that space to get rid of pottery dust and stuff like that. A little more put into that way. We actually have a door that opens up into this one multi-purpose room. So when we have a program like Make Clay, when we have a larger usage of children using our clay studio, we can extend into that room so we have more space as we move forward with that. As we move down, this is a gallery space, permanent collection storage, and an office for our curator. The pottery, if you guys can picture the current Signal Hill Gallery and then the Alley Griffin Gallery that's in the downstairs of the library, that's those 2 spaces combined into one. So it's about 1,700 square feet for a gallery. We'll be purchasing movable walls that if we want to put on 2 shows, we're able to do that and make sure we can maximize the uses of that space. So it's just not one gallery, you can have multiple shows in there. Humidification is a big thing for that. When I looked into technical parts of the whole facility, that's actually the most that we have because of all the different needs we have for galleries. We want to bring in different gallery shows into our galleries right now. So right now, there's lots that we cannot bring in. There's some Saskatchewan shows, there's some national shows we cannot bring in right now because of humidification, because of loading docks. I mean, I'll show you later on where a loading dock is for this, that there's options for us now to actually bring in more shows into our galleries. As we keep on moving down, this is a commercial lease space. It's kind of a set in place if we ever have someone approach us who wants to maybe bring in a coffee shop into that space. So we haven't put a bunch of work into it right now. It's kind of an open space, and it'll be leasehold improvements if someone wants to come in and lease that space from us moving forward. These are min spaces. So this is actually a meeting room, storage space, front counter, and then 3 office spaces. So those office spaces would be for our facility manager. They'd be there for our arts people, and we actually have a space there for students when our students come in and work in the summertime. As we keep on moving down, this is an indoor playground. And when I show you the second level, we actually have views into that indoor playground from the upper level. Right now, that's about 2,200 square feet in size. We're working with some companies on different layouts for equipment into that space. We're trying to see if we can make that into an accessible playground as well. Some things that some of the people we're talking to have not seen for an indoor space, but we want to make sure that we can do as much and offer that to as many people as we can for an indoor playground space. So at this time, they have some basic drawings in there, and actually when I show you my very last video, it'll show you some interior looks into it. But right now we have no set layout for that. We're just working with some companies, like I said, to move forward with that. This is a maintenance room with access from outside and access into the field area. This is a storage area, and this is a storage area. So we actually have storage for city use, and we have storage for facility user use. A big thing that we've seen during a lot of our facility tours is that a need for storage. We went to some facilities where they had no storage. We went to some that actually had just enough storage, and one thing we heard from a lot of our consultations, a lot of our tours is don't skip out on storage because you'll be kicking yourself down the road if they don't have that. So a big thing that we want to do is make sure that we have storage for the entire facility, but for extended use in the future as well. As we keep on moving forward, these are mechanical rooms, wire rooms to serve the facility, and then this is actually a Zamboni room that will serve a proposed new outdoor rink in Jubilee Park. So right now, our plan is to actually move our Zamboni in 2 years from Crescent Point Place and Tom Zani Sports Arena, purchase a new Zamboni for that space and move that Zamboni over to this facility to serve this outdoor rink. Next thing we have, there's 8 dressing rooms, 4 of which are exterior accessibility. So what we have is use for people who want to use outdoor rink. In the wintertime, we can open those doors and they have someplace warm to put in their skates. On the flip side, when it's spring and summertime, when people are using Jubilee Park for sporting activities, big events, they have dress rooms that are available from the outside into the building for usage that way. And then we'll also put some stuff in here to actually put water into the outdoor rink as we move forward. But our plan is to have as many dress rooms as possible. That's another thing we've seen during a lot of our tours is people had a lack of dress rooms. When they had big events come through, they actually had exterior storage. We want to have as many possible that if we have, say, a minor hockey team who wants to use outdoor rink, they have access into that space at the same time when someone is using our main field space here. So moving into the main field space, this is a 45 by 60 half FIFA soccer field, synthetic turf field. What we have is a dividing curtain in the middle. And also within that, we actually have a side area here which will have pitching tunnels and batting cages. It's a kind of a rubberized surface that can be used by baseball teams. It can be used as warm-up areas for people who are playing sporting events in the facility. There's lots of different options for that space. It's just kind of an open space that we can use for that space as we move forward. So moving on to the second level, we have a 220 meter 3-lane walking track. This will be a sports surface track, a little more cushion than we've seen in other facilities. I know when we went to the U of R, they replaced their turf or their walking track rubberized surface within 3 years of them putting it in because they put such a thin surface in, and all their athletes going through kind of wore that out as they went through. So what we're looking at is kind of a thicker rubberized surface for that as we move forward. You also have seating for 288 people here, second level. You have storage rooms, mechanical rooms, and washrooms serving the upstairs area. Like I said before, you have viewing area down to the playing climb or the play space down below. Moving right beside, we actually have a space here for 4 simulators. So these would be simulators that would be multi-sport, not just golf simulators. We have simulators used for, I think it's 13 different activities. So hockey, baseball, football, throwing a ball at a clown in a dunk tank, a lot of different options that you can use. We're actually talking to a Canadian company right now for some more information on what they have for their simulators and options for simulators as we move forward. So the one thing we want to do is not have a space that is just a single use, not just a golf area. We want to make sure that if we have more corporate events, birthday events, that it's a multi-use space, that it's just not just golf, it's multi-sports, multi-use. One thing you guys do not see on this drawing here, there's only a single door here. We've actually talked to our architects, and that was last week, about making a movable door or a garage door or something here so we can actually make the space open to both sides. I actually felt like this was a little too enclosed. That way, moving into our mini gym. So this is a mini gym which shows 2 badminton or 2 pickleball courts. It's kind of a flex space. We see as a space that's open all the time for daytime use, afternoon use for people. We see Friday nights, Saturday mornings, Saturday afternoons, Sunday nights as kind of a flex hall. I know when I was talking to the people in Red Deer, they have the same kind of a gym set up, and they said that it's just loaded with people all the time using gym space and kind of flowing in between where the simulator room is and where the flex gym is. And it's kind of a easy space for us because it's second level. We actually had a mechanical room there at one point, and when we changed our mechanical system, we didn't need that space anymore. So it kind of worked out to have a mini gym that's open for all uses, all ages. So it's a pretty cool setup that way. And then a little storage room that kind of serves towards that whole space there. So this is the parking view. It says right over here, 116 stalls. I put Weyburn Leisure Center so you guys kind of have orientation where we are. So this is the current parking lot that we have there. This will be actually a shared space of the school. They actually have teacher parking here. They have parking here for usage for their daycare, which is right here. And this is their bus loop. So what we're going to do is we're going to share the cost on doing a new parking lot, paved parking lot in this space for 116 stalls with accessible right near the front door of the facility. Majority grass around. We have some walking paths moving into Jubilee Park as we go through. We're actually looking at putting some paths here that leads you into the outdoor ring so people aren't walking through a whole pile of snow as they go through. But we're trying to maximize the parking lot as much as we can. And where you guys see these little meridians here, that's actually where we're going to put our lighting in for the parking lot. But a big thing we want to do is make sure that we're using as much as we can. I know that it went from 95 stalls to 116, so we've expanded the space as we went through this process. Because I know I've heard that we want as much parking in this facility, especially for future expansion. Because upstairs level, we have future expansion into a walking way into a future indoor pool. Should be located right back here. So you just have to picture that our current outdoor pool's here. We have it right to the back side of that. So we're looking at having as much as we can to plan for the future as we move forward. So when I talked about in my second last slide, having some potential shared spaces and joint use spaces with the school, I have touched on these, that we would have shared public washrooms, shared kitchen, shared community commons, shared access out to the soccer fields, so that'd be off the community commons, and then shared public space, kind of an open space that goes into their gym or goes into our facility outside of Jubilee Park. Joint use spaces that we see, fieldhouse activity spaces, so for the school during the day, they can come over and use that space if it's not booked by one of our renters or one of our community members. The fieldhouse NPR room, so that's the lower level or the upper level multipurpose rooms I talked about. The pottery studio, the play structure within that space. There's the school gym. School has a multipurpose room, their commons area or their outdoor learning, which is right in this space here for the project. So at the very end, this is actually a great video that Site 360 and number 10 did for us. We'll actually show you a better view of the entire facility, not just ours, but also the school, and also show you the interior of ours going forward.
It has music. Yeah.
So what you're seeing here is the backside of the school facility as we go over Jubilee Park. Send to you. So now they'll go into the interior of our facility. So as you walk in, you'll be able to see the indoor play space as you walk in. And I think they turn left, which will take you down by the art space after they go through the field area space. So that's the art center. And then view down to the community commons and our multipurpose rooms. That's my presentation as an update for City Council and for the public on where we're at our 66% for the new proposed Weyburn Recreational and Cultural Center. So at this time, I'll open up to Council for any questions you may have for me as the Leisure Services Director, and go from there.
What at the first off, construction commencing?
Construction would start in October of this year.
Of this year.
Yeah. So right now, it says in the presentation we're shooting for September 1st for tenders, but we're actually hoping to push the limits a little more and go into August. We want the best pricing we can as we move forward for the project, and we think to have it mid-August is actually a better way to do that. We had a meeting last week with our architects stating that, and we're trying to find a way to get us closer to that. So and
that kind of corresponds with the school is starting their construction at the same time. So
all of our construction will be the same time as a school. We'll have shared costs with materials and stuff like that, so we're doing all the shared timeline with them that way.
Chair recognizes Mr. Mickle.
Thank you, Worship. Matthew, first of all, thank you very much. You,
Dick,
Facility Manager Button, the time you spend with this project, the City of Weyburn appreciates what you've done. A couple questions I have for you, Matthew. The hours of operation are what, and are you open 7 days a week?
Yeah, so we be open 7 days a week. This isn't a facility that we're just going to be closed here and there. We're planning on being open all throughout the year. Hours of operations, we see this kind of similar to what we do over at the Quag Center. We're looking at 6 till 10, so 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. Right now, we don't know until we go into usage, but with people who want to have early morning walks, it's the same thing as a lane swimmer, right? We'd be open for 6 o'clock for people to go into those spaces. And then we'd say 10 or even later if we have to based on adult recreational programming.
The other question I have, Matthew, The reason why I asked those two questions was if there's a larger group that wanted to use the facility, they could schedule their times in many different hours and many days of the week to fit their program, right?
Yep.
The pickleballers, I'm asking. I mean, their clientele has really risen in the past couple of years. It's great. So with only 2 courts in this facility, with all the times of operation and days open, they should be able to facilitate that with all their members without everybody coming at once. Is that true?
Yeah, one big thing we see is that that's why that upstairs gym is a key part for us, is that it's open. It's something that we will not see large renters coming in for that. That's for smaller groups who want to have recreational use, people who want to have open times when they want to come at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning or 10 at night if they want to use. There's lots of different times you can use that space. Also with a joint partnership with the school is if they want to have larger usage, they actually have a larger gym. With that school being a school built for 750 kids, it's not a small gym. It's not a Simplify Park School gym. It's a gym that's a third larger than that current space. So there's opportunities for people to use a space.
The last question, Matthew, any idea on the cost?
Yeah, for us right now, we will not know the true cost for construction until we go into bid process. That's where we're hoping to push it a little sooner so we can get some better pricing for it. Based on some estimates we've seen through our Class C, which is 33%, and actually I'm going through a Class B right now, which will give us 66%. You're looking at a facility maybe between $22 to $25 million once you include all your architectural fees and all your construction fees and all your equipment fees into that facility. But right now we cannot give you an exact dollar amount until we go into that construction phase, and are hoping that the prices are really good and people are hungry to bid for these kind of things, especially for a facility that large. It's not just one facility, it's 2 facilities. You're looking at a $50 million, $45 to $50 million facility that someone will be bidding on to construct.
Thank you, Matthew.
Chair recognizes Mr. Bailey.
Thank you. Well done, Matthew. Love your presentation and the amount of time that you put in on this. It's been very open for us to see. What's the square footage of this building on the main floor? I guess you got 2 floors there in the track and that, but the footprint, what would be the square footage of this?
So I'm just trying to think of our last estimate, because our numbers just went up in space. So right now I cannot give you exactly square footage on that, Councillor Bailey.
Within 10,000 square feet.
Yeah, I would say about maybe, what they say, I'm going in square meters, but I'm trying to think. We'll say 45 right now, 50.
50,000 square feet?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I can give you guys the exact number, because right now I said there's some changes happening on that facility, so I can go through and provide you better numbers for that.
So the main floor, which is soccer field, ball field, whatever it is, that is half a regular soccer field,
Half a FIFA.
which would accommodate probably 90% of our soccer teams here, what they'd actually play on outdoors.
That's correct.
That's important, because that is going to accommodate that smaller children for sure, as if it was outdoors and they were playing outdoors, and that's incredible. So
Yeah, and we see that space for football practices, flag football, if they want to start having that, and more adult activities. We would be looking at things like ultimate frisbee, flag football, adult soccer, bubble soccer. Yeah, I think you guys as councillors have actually played that on the ice surface over at Garrison Point Place, and you beat the credit union, so congratulations on that one. But there's so many more opportunities than just youth usage. We want to see more community events. I know that a lot of the communities who have turf surfaces have inflatable bouncy houses they bring into those spaces, outdoor movies they bring into those spaces. There's a lot of different opportunities that you have.
the facility and the number is huge for our community. We know that, but I think what we've directed you, and we're not planning this for today. We're planning this for 25, 30 years down the road, what we can envision that we need. And I think that's the responsible vision to take, is, down the road, just not for today, but down the road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Mr. Richards.
Thanks, Your Worship, and thank you, Acting City Manager, Director of Leisure Services, and that's the 2 hats you're wearing today. I appreciate the work you've done on this as well. This is a fantastic project. I appreciate the amount of money that it is as well. And so my question to you is, can you help identify, for me anyways, the difference in how this facility will operate versus the current partnership we have with the school division at the comp on that facility?
Yes, Councillor Richards. So our current agreement with the school division for the Cuyton Center is that that facility is owned and operated by the Southeast Cornerstone School Division. So we as a city provide funds towards that for the performing arts part of it. For this facility, we own and operate the Weyburn Recreational and Cultural Center. So pretty much where I pointed out before, which I can point out to you guys right here, it's actually a better view. This space right here, over, is owned and operated by us as a city. This space down here is all owned and operated by the Southeast Cornerstone School Division. The one thing we still do have to do is go into joint use agreements about shared spaces and stuff like that. But that's the biggest difference is in that facility, that is owned and operated solely by the Southeast Cornerstone School Division. And when I go through this part of this project, the Weyburn Recreational and Cultural Center will be completely owned and operated by the City of Weyburn.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chair recognizes Mr. Van Betju.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I also, Matthew, I'd like to thank you for all the work that yourself and your staff has put into this, and especially your vision. I think everything that you've put into this and what you've put into this facility, I think is going to serve the City of Weyburn and all its citizens, which was the goal, to make this a multi-generational facility, and I think you've accomplished that. The only question I have, and I'm sure, is there is an elevator in the building. I know you never mentioned it, but I just, for everybody to know they don't have to climb stairs.
No, we don't want people to climb stairs. That's not good at all, because with it doing 2 levels, we have to follow certain building codes. So actually the elevator is right here. When you first walk into the facility, that leads right into the 2nd level right here. So it's just a one-story elevator, from space to space.
I'd hate for there not to be an elevator in a fitness facility.
The key thing for us, Councillor Van Betju, is we want to make sure it's accessible too. We want to make sure that if people want, that walking track is accessible. We want to make sure that our spaces are accessible for people to use. And I touch base on that with the play space, and it's something that I'm learning right now as a facility manager and as a leisure services director, is to know more about what indoor playgrounds have and what they have for accessibility, and same thing, that make sure that our track is accessible for people to use as well.
Yes, I appreciate that, and I think, like I say, I think what you've done is it's hard to satisfy everybody. Everybody wants a bigger field. Everybody wants a bigger this, want more of that. But I think you've done a very good job of trying to accommodate the facility that'll work for everybody.
Chair recognizes Youth Mayor Field.
I was just wondering if, what the employment would be like, and if it would be similar to the pool where there's like a cashier and a concession, or if there's a supervisor walking around, or what would the employment look like?
Yep. So for that land, and we would actually have facility staff. So it's quite similar to how we do our current leisure center and our current arena facilities. So we'd actually have to have staff when we open up. So if we're open up at 6 o'clock in the morning, we have to have staff in from 6 till 10. We would have office staff in from Monday to Friday, from 8 to 5, someone who will be scheduling the facility, someone who will make sure that operations are going properly for all of our staff. It's quite similar to what Tina Clay would be over at our Quad Center. Going into programming, we actually have front office people, so we have a cashier from when we open till we closed. So we'd have a full-time cashier and part-time cashiers for that. And also talking about our programming space. So if we had, say, Saturday afternoons and Sunday afternoons open gym time, we'd actually have to hire program supervisors to watch those spaces. So that's one of the reasons actually I asked to put an additional wall removal here, so I had a door so someone can watch all these spaces and make sure that it's going properly that way. So quite similar to what we do at the pool, just kind of a different layout.
Do we have a concession area?
Yep. So we talked about the commercial lease space right here.
Okay.
So that's open right now. We, like I said, we leasehold improvements, so it's an open space that if someone wants to
Because I was at the cooperators the other night, and they have upstairs, they have an open part, and it's also licensed too, because again, because people are coming in facilities and they're doing, and that's all going to be a similar operation there.
Correct.
Okay. Any further questions?
I guess your worship.
Chair recognizes Mr. McRae.
Just a comment. Thank you, Matthew. I think I've came and knocked on your door a few times about it. I think your teams and yourself have done a great job. I'm glad we're doing it right. I'm sure we could have built a $16 to $20 million building, but I think we're right, and even as council, that we're taking the plunge and doing what's good for long term. This building should last us, and it's something for our community to do, and that's what everyone's always asking for. So glad to see this happening.
Mr. Mickle?
Your Worship, I'm prepared to make a motion to proceed with the Recreation and Culture Center to be constructed in conjunction with the Southeast Cornerstone Elementary School at 600 5th Street Northeast as presented.
Mr. Jessel?
I'll second that, your worship.
Any further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Warren. There are no inquiries and announcements. There are no notice of motions, or I should say, are there any inquiries and announcements? There are none. There's no notice of motion. There's no request for clarification. Any? There's no committee of the whole, and so I call this meeting adjourned.